Hey, it's nice to see everyone coming on. I appreciate the way you often write hello and where you're from. Kind of gives that feeling of us all being together. And I'm always delighted with how widespread this Sangha is. So thank you for that. Let's settle in for our meditation together, finding a posture where you can be upright and also relaxed, and allowing yourself to settle in, feeling the seat where you're sitting or whatever you're lying on, really feeling that contact and connection so that you can let go and allow it to simply support you. Closing the eyes if that's comfortable for you, bringing the attention inward. Sensing the body in the posture that it's in kind of an overall way to help orient the mind. And so we could say, give your attention to the posture and notice how it is that you're giving that attention. When you turn to the posture at the beginning of the sit, are you controlling it from the top down, making it relax and align in certain ways? Or are you not quite giving your full attention because you're just coming into the usual habitual posture that you always do? So I'm just drawing attention to this word, give your attention to the posture, and wondering how would it be if the attention is really a gift that we're giving? So maybe offer your attention to the posture of this body. And does that change how the relationship feels? Maybe in light of it being a gift, the body feels empowered to orient itself, to straighten up appropriately, to relax into a form that feels supportive for meditation. It's nice to receive a gift. So letting the body receive the gift of your attention. And broadening that attention, giving or offering attention to all of the bodily sensations as they are right now. Just letting them be as they are and letting them be known as they are. Now broadening the awareness to include the emotions that are present, any thoughts that are in the mind, maybe various intentions or aspirations. Just holding all of experience in a spacious awareness that we are giving as a gift to our experience. And as we practice with this giving attention as a gift, we may notice how giving attention relates to letting go. We can't fully offer our awareness unless we let each thing be as it is, be known as it is, and have its life of arising and persisting and passing away. To be fully aware, we have to let things be, let them go. So just letting experience flow. And we'll sit in silence for a while. with great generosity, letting go of our stories, letting go of our ideas, our complaints, our judgments, our wantings, just letting go of entanglement with all of those things that grab at our attention, letting them come, be as they are, and go without hooking on to them. And discovering how that generous way of being actually settles the mind, slowly brings the heart into alignment. And from practicing this way, we may get a glimpse or a hint of how we might be that way with others also. With the right balance and under the right conditions, it can sometimes be the best just to open. Let there be other viewpoints. Let there be other ways of being without leaping in and entangling ourselves. And somehow that attitude can sometimes allow things to settle in our relationships with others. That spaciousness. Just with the gift of our full, unentangled attention, things can shift. Letting go is a contribution to peace. So we're continuing on with this list that pertains to meeting life well. It's a list of 5 items from the Pali Canon that are described as inner wealth, fortitude, inspiring things to reflect upon, and signs of spiritual growth. And today we're on the 4th one. The Pali word is chaga. That's spelled C long A G A, chaga. And it has 2 important and related dimensions. So chaga is sometimes translated as generosity, and that's the first dimension. It's the mental attitude or movement behind the act of dana, giving. We often hear dana translated as generosity, but it more literally means the act of giving or the gift itself. Chaga is this wholesome motivation behind giving. So it's about wanting to share, being happy about offering. I'll read the standard language that's used in the suttas. Here, a noble disciple dwells at home with a heart devoid of the stain of miserliness, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. So you can hear that the description is actually about the state of the person's heart. Freely generous, delighting in giving, devoted to charity. These are heart words. And so we can ask, well, how is an attitude of literal giving helpful as a Dharma resource? I think if we can be willing to be generous when under stress, that is an amazing spiritual quality. Usually in challenging situations, the heart closes and easily succumbs to feelings of holding on, wanting to protect, wanting to push away. But if we've cultivated generosity deeply enough, we will be more attracted to the good feeling of giving than to those reactive emotions that might come in the moment. The Buddha encouraged us to investigate the act of giving by noticing what is going on in our mind, why we are giving, how we're giving. And when we talked about virtue a couple of days ago, I suggested simply watching how we act and speak with mindfulness, such that we can notice when we're acting from unwholesome motivations, rather than doing some kind of a top-down control of our behavior to try to be ethical. So we can do the same thing with giving. Just watch how you give and notice what motivations, what emotions, what mannerisms are present. And when we do that, it will gradually purify our giving to come more often from the wholesome side. So just to offer some specifics that we might notice, sometimes we can actually give a gift out of fear. Perhaps we're afraid of displeasing someone in power if we don't give. We can also give out of desire, hatred, delusion, even as an insult. We can also give, of course, due to more complex relational and social reasons. Maybe we're giving to even the score with somebody who was given to us, or we're attempting to put another person in social debt to us. Or we may simply be following in the tradition of our family, or we might feel obligated to give because we have more than someone else. We might give in order to look good. We can also give because it makes the mind tranquil and happy. Or we can give out of compassion or love. These are very wholesome motivations. So actually everything I read there are all mentioned in the Buddhist teachings. They're all from the suttas. So people have been giving for these reasons for at least 2,500 years. And they're not given, I think, to judge various motivations, but rather to suggest that it's good to know why we're giving. The mind has many intentions, as we know, and as we observe, we'll naturally move toward the more wholesome ones, which is what roots this quality of chaga deeply into the heart and helps make it into a Dharma resource. There's also a choice about when to give. And it can be good to give immediately when we feel the urge to do so, especially if it would help to counteract some negative mind state that we have. I'm remembering that one time I was talking with a friend and I mentioned that I was intending to give some fruit to a neighbor with whom I had disagreed. And this was a Dharma friend. And she sat up straight and said, "Would you like to go do that right now?" And I was a little bit surprised, but I agreed. And in a short time, we had done it. And I felt lighter. There was a letting go. It was nice that I was intending that, but why not actually just go do it, right? And so then that leads to the second dimension of chaga, which is letting go. It's the letting go that we do along the path distinct but related to the actual act of giving a gift. It's more subtle, maybe, this letting go that we do as part of our practice. So the Buddhist path is about letting go more and more deeply. There is cultivation on the path, but even if we're actively cultivating a certain quality, we're generally going to have to release or dissolve the obstacles to doing that. So the idea eventually is to let go of the craving and clinging that are at the heart of dukkha. So chaga is used in a powerful verse from the Dhammapada. It goes like this: if by giving up a lesser happiness, one could experience greater happiness, a wise person would renounce the lesser to behold the greater. It makes sense in the abstract. We'll talk about it in a moment, but chaga in this verse is the word that's translated as both giving up and renounce. So if by giving up a lesser happiness, one could experience greater happiness, a wise person would renounce the lesser to behold the greater. Both of those are the word chaga. So we see that letting go is related to happiness, and particularly to finding a pathway toward greater forms of happiness. And sometimes this is relatively clear, which is the greater happiness: getting some kind of enjoyable food or creating a harmonious relationship with your partner, some kind of material gain, or being honest, being truthful. So we can see that ethics and kindness and compassion are ordinary and quite accessible examples of these greater forms of happiness. We don't need to be thinking, way high up. But another greater happiness is the kind that comes from meditation. So we gather the mind in meditation by letting go of the 5 hindrances and other reactive mind states and thoughts that prevent us from settling down. We give up the lesser happiness of being involved in our thoughts and emotions for the greater happiness of meditative calm when the conditions allow us to do that. There's a quote from the suttas that says, this is the Buddha talking: should anyone say the 5 chords of sensual pleasure are the utmost pleasure and joy that human beings experience, I would not concede that to them. Why is that? Because there is another kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than that pleasure. And what is that? And then I'm summarizing to say that it's the pleasure of meditative composure. So the Buddha was clear about that. And then there are also various meditative insights that emerge along the path. And these are also typically realized when the mind releases its grip and is suddenly able to see differently in some way that can't easily be unseen. That's one of the qualities of insight. So as we practice with both literal generosity and this act of letting go, we can condition our heart to realize that in many cases, relinquishment is better than acquisition, right? In general, relinquishment is better than acquisition. That's actually kind of a deep spiritual thing to start realizing. And then we still have to discover in each situation what it is that we need to let go of. There is some discernment about that. It is possible to let go unwisely, which we wouldn't want to do, but it's also very wise sometimes to let go. So we can meet life with this attitude of letting go. Maybe when we're struggling, or we could have the internal question, what would I have to let go of to make this easier? And sometimes we need to literally give something, like offering a gift to someone that we find difficult. Or sometimes we need to release something that we're gripping internally, like an emotion, for example, or some viewpoint or opinion. Today is Thanksgiving Day in the United States, and in the mythology that surrounds it, it's a celebration of a good harvest that would be sufficient to carry the early settlers in New England through the winter. And apparently there was some cooperation with the local Native Americans. So there's this image of kind of a shared feast together, which is about generosity and gratitude, much of what we're talking about today. And this is the story that many people in the United States grow up with. And so it's a holiday that centers around family and food. But for Native Americans, of course, there isn't such a rosy view of the interaction with colonists that came from Europe. That didn't play out very well, and it continues to be very painful. And some Native Americans even call today a day of mourning, day of mourning. But I've also heard that some Native Americans are now reclaiming Thanksgiving Day as an expression of values that are deeply inherent in Native culture. You know, gratitude and giving are prominent in Native American history. And why let white people co-opt that? So there's an example of flexibility in order to find a way through differing views. This is something that comes out of our ability to let go and be generous, is to understand that there are different ways to perceive any given situation. And it's helpful to find a way that isn't so much involved with dukkha, to find some view or perspective that is not related to suffering. So regarding this day, maybe in a more down-to-earth practical sense, you might find that there are some conversations at the family dining table with relatives who hold differing views. And I would like to recommend experimenting with the idea of releasing adherence to your own views in favor of being together peacefully. So it's a lesser happiness to win an argument or make a pointed statement than the greater happiness of appreciating a chance to have a meal together and spend some time together. So you'll navigate it in your own way. I don't want to give specifics, but at least consider this idea about the lesser and greater happiness, and maybe try to look for what you could let go of in order to behold a greater happiness. So we can be so generous with our mind and heart, and so flexible. And doing that actually makes us resilient in the world. And it's a wonderful resource for meeting life well. So I wish you a beautiful day of, if you're in the United States, a day of celebration. If you're farther out, a day of peace and letting go and generosity. So chaga, this resource of giving and letting go. Thank you.